you know, or were you familiar with the route to practice in Canada as well? Or how did you find out about the NCA? How did you navigate that process?
So that's the good thing about technology. Google is a girl's best friend. So I went on, Googled like, how do I qualify in Canada? And I found out about NCA. I tried to check online. As I said earlier, Google is a girl's best friend. So I checked and I saw Facebook and WhatsApp groups that I could join so that I don't feel alone. I joined those groups and it was the best thing that ever happened, because there's so much resources. There's so many resources in there. The people sharing materials, people getting together to have like tutorials and things like that.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's That Proud Black Woman again, and thank you so much for tuning in today. So before we even get right into the video, hit the subscribe button, turn on post notifications, share, like, comment, and all that good stuff. Okay, so today what I'm going to be doing, I have an interview with a podcaster. His name is Anton Haswell, and he's also a lawyer, although he's not practicing. He's actually a Torontonian, but he had to go to the UK to study. So when he came back, of course, he had to do the licensing process as well. So he started this podcast where he speaks with people that have already been through the process and talked about their triumphs and their failures, their triumphs, how they were able to pull through. And it's just like a chat, it's informal. So the last time, I'm going to put a link up here, I talked about my triumph. I talked about how I went through the process of the licensing and all that stuff, and the struggles I went through, and I posted it on one of our platforms on Facebook for the NCA and the LSO platforms, and he reached out to me. So today we're going to be having an interview, and I'm going to bring you guys along with me. So thank you so much. Stay tuned.
Hi, Fikemi.
Hi Anton.
Hi, yeah, thank you for agreeing to join the podcast and be my guest, and also be my very first video podcast guest.
The pleasure is mine.
Yeah, much appreciated. So I always, obviously it makes sense to start from the beginning, Fikemi. So I suppose it would be great for our listeners to learn where you're from, where you studied law, and why you chose to study law.
Mm-hmm. So I am from Nigeria, and I actually studied law from my LLB, actually, from Olabisi Onabanjo University, and it's usually referred to as OOU. Mm-hmm. So after that, I went on to the law school in Enugu State, which is the eastern part of Nigeria, and that was like a year. And in 2012, I got called to the bar in Nigeria, and then later that year, I traveled to Dublin, Ireland, to actually do my master's in international human rights law. So I was there until 2014, and after that I went back to Nigeria, practiced for a little bit, and then in 2015 I came to Canada. So as regards why I wanted to study law, I don't have like a really touching story or anything like that. My dad's older brother is a lawyer, and he has 8 kids, and 5 of those kids are also lawyers. So I just used to admire the regalia, the way they put on the robe, because back in Nigeria, we also wear the wig. Mm-hmm. So I just loved it, like gracious, the way they wear the robe and all that. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to be when I grow up. And that was just the story. And I just kept, like, since I was 3 years old, if you asked me what I want to be, I would have said a lawyer. So I never changed my mind, and I just kept at it. That's
that's great. I think what's interesting about that is that you've got obviously a lot of family members who are in law, so you grew up kind of in that world, and you understood from a different perspective. Like, a lot of people don't know what they want to be, and they choose law a little later in life. That's what I did. So it's interesting to hear from somebody who, when they're 3 years old, they knew exactly what they wanted to do, and it was going to be a lawyer and wear the robe and the wig, and that's great. So I'm curious about your trip to Ireland. What spearheaded that? Like, what was the motivation behind going to Ireland? Was it the school, or was it the experience, or a bit of both?
It was a bit of both. Like, I have always liked to travel. Like, I grew up a little bit. My parents were in the UK for a little bit when I was growing up. And then like we've always traveled, like, so I love to see other people's culture. I'm really into inclusion and diversity matters and things like that, seeing things from other people's perspectives. And I'm passionate about human rights law, right? So I thought, what other way, if I'm sitting in Nigeria studying international human rights, it didn't sit well with me. So I was like, why not go outside my country and see what other people have to offer? So that's how I found myself going to Ireland. At first, I was going to go to the UK, but I was like, I've lived in the UK before. Why not go somewhere else? So I have that also under my belt. So at that time, my mom's younger brother is still living in Ireland. So I said, well, good, I would have at least a familiar face there. So that's how I chose Ireland.
Interesting. So when you went to Ireland and you completed your international law degree or law master's program there, what did you do after that? Like, did you have, I guess, right at that point, the world is your oyster, right? You have your law degree, you have your master's of law, and now you're in Ireland. So do you choose to go to Canada right after that? Or do you consider Europe? And I mean, because, you know, they're just curious
at that time, I wasn't sure I wanted to remain in Europe. And then thinking about it, I had to go to law school as well to qualify to work as a barrister there. And it cost a lot of money. It was about 20,000 euros. So I was like, I'm not sure I want to spend all that money if I'm not going to be staying there forever. And my husband had already mentioned to me that he would like to travel to Canada to continue his studies. So at that time, it was already brewing, like, okay, I might go to Canada. So I knew I might go to Canada from I think 2014. So yeah.
Right. And so when Canada becomes an option for you guys, I mean, your husband's continuing his studies in Canada. He knows, generally speaking, what he's going to be doing. But you have got this law degree and this master's degree, and now you're saying, well, I know in order to qualify in the UK and I want to be a litigator, then I have to go to, you know, take a BPTC course and become a barrister. You know the route, generally speaking. Did you know, or were you familiar with the route to practice in Canada as well? Or how did you find out about the NCA? How did you navigate that process?
So that's the good thing about technology. Google is a girl's best friend. So I went on, Googled, like, how do I qualify in Canada? And I found out about NCA. So I filled out the profile and all the information that was necessary, opened up the portal. And at that point, the next step was for me to send in my transcripts and for both Nigeria and Ireland. So I just left it there because I hadn't gotten my Ireland results yet at that time. So I just left it there. And after that, when we came to Canada, I was pregnant. So everything had to go to the back burner because my husband was in school full time and also he was working part time. So I couldn't do much about my law degree, and I had this baby. When I came, I think 6 weeks after I gave birth. So I had a newborn, so I couldn't do anything.
Right.
Until 2017, I had to take 5 weeks of leave of absence from work to focus on getting that done. So that's pretty much what I did.
Right. And so, I mean, I think it's useful. I anticipate there may be quite a few people, let's say from Nigeria, who would be listening to your journey and wanting to learn, because maybe they're where you were years ago in law school, and maybe they're thinking about immigrating to Canada or doing a master's degree in Canada. So they're also looking online, they're using Google, they're going on Facebook, and they're thinking, how should I go about preparing for the NCA exams? Should I look at going through an institution? Should I get the Osgoode Hall master's degree? Should I look at personal tutors? Like, how did you navigate that world? And what advice would you give to, let's say, Nigerian students who are considering going through a similar journey to yours?
So my advice would be to do your research. While I was in Ireland, I did research. I had seen the Osgoode and I checked the tuition. I couldn't afford it. So I thought, yeah, that's not an option for me. So if you can afford it, why not? You could go for that. But I couldn't. So I thought, well, I'll just go with the NCA route and self-study and things like that. But I tried to check online. As I said earlier, Google is a girl's best friend. So I checked and I saw Facebook and WhatsApp groups that I could join so that I don't feel alone. Because here in Canada, my family, nobody's here. It's just me and my immediate family, my husband and my kid. So I joined those groups, and it was the best thing that ever happened, because there's so much resources. There's so many resources in there. The people sharing materials, people getting together to have like tutorials and things like that. So it really helped me. So even though I was studying alone at home, I didn't feel alone. So after that, after my results came out and I passed, and I posted it on the website, on the Facebook and also on the WhatsApp, a lot of people reached out to me because they were like, wow, you were able to do this with your children and things like that. And they wanted to know. So I was able to mentor them, like, this is what I did. Would it work for you? I can't guarantee. Everybody have a different way of learning. To give them as much advice as I can. So if I'm also open to helping people, mentoring people, like if they're interested, they could send me an email on thatproudblackwoman@gmail.com, and I would like reach out as fast as I can. Right now I'm working full time, but I still find the time to help people, because if I had that help, if I had somebody to rely on to like cheer me on while I had the journey, I think it would be faster than what it was. So that would be my advice. Just do your research and choose the one that is better for you. If you can afford the Osgood, why not? If you can, and you're like me, you could just take it step by step. You're given a couple of years to finish the exams. You can take it one at a time. You can take it two at a time. I did mine all at the same time because I was in a hurry. I was like, I had to get this done. I just had to get it out of the way. So that's my story. That's
really good advice, and I think that's useful for people who share a similar journey to you, to reach out. And I will include that email address in the posting of this episode, and I'm sure you'll share and circulate this as well, so people will know how to get in touch with you for sure. That's a great resource, obviously. So you said that you're working full-time here. I know you're in the Greater Toronto area in Canada, in Ontario. So I'm curious as to what you're up to now and where you see your journey heading. Like what would be your ultimate aspiration now that you're in Canada? You have, Canadian children now. Let's say, how do you foresee your legal career moving now?
Yeah. So before I even talk about that, I was going to talk a little bit more about my NCA journey. As I said, 2017, I had to put in 5 weeks to get everything sorted, to get my evaluation done, and it came. I had 6 exams to write. So as at that time, I was working full time, and I had only one child then. So I was like, you know what? Now I know what to do. I know I have 6 exams, and I know how many years it's going to take me to complete them. So I left that. But then in 2018, I fell pregnant with my other child, and by the end July, I went on mat leave. So I thought to myself, rather than sit at home for 1 year looking after a baby, I could just take that time to actually focus on getting all my exams done. Like, I had a goal. I have to finish all the licensing exams if possible and get my barrister, so that leaving from mat leave, I don't want to go back to do the same job, because then I was a factory, I was general labor. I was in general labor. It's called packaging operator at a brewery. So I didn't like that. I was depressed all the time, thinking I have all these law degrees, I have a master's degree, I'm in this country and I'm still doing all of that. So I had nothing to be proud of. So I was like, I have to get everything done. So it was difficult. From the day I gave birth, I was already thinking, how can I make my life better as soon as possible? So I registered for all my exams. At that time, I had 6, but they don't offer contracts in January. So I applied for all 5 at one time. And thank God I did it with a baby. Like my baby would be outside with my husband and my sister, which at that time was exclusively breastfed, wouldn't take the bottle. So it was so stressful. I was in the exam thinking about my child outside, crying, screaming, and all that stuff. But the thing is, I was looking at the goal. Like the goal is to get my licensing done, to get a better life for me and for that child as well. So that's what my focus was on. And thank God I did it. So after my LSO journey was a different story. After I finished my, when I got my certificate of qualification in November 2019, I decided to go straight on, do both licensing exams at the same time. People would think, are you crazy? Because I was back to full-time job now. And now I have 2 little kids under the age of 4, but I was still looking at the goal because I wasn't happy where I was. But the silver lining was, before I got back to my job, they advertised the position for health and safety. So I applied and I was able to get that. So I was no longer as depressed as I was doing the job I had before, because now I was in the office, I was being able to use, my own gumptions a little bit, because before it was like, I was like a puppet. They tell you, yeah, we're producing beer, 8,000 pallets, and that's it. I felt like my brain was dying on me. So at that point, I was much happier and I had a little bit more time with my schedule. It wasn't shifts anymore. I was doing 8 to 4, so it was good for me. So I went for my licensing, and in March, I was supposed to do both barrister and solicitor at the same time. I studied, I only had 3 months because I registered in November, got my materials in December, and I was studying. I didn't have time to study at home because of the kids, so the 30 minutes lunch break that I have at work, I would use it to study. I used to take my big book to work and people would be looking at me like, are you crazy? But thank God I was able to complete I did the barrister. Unfortunately, solicitor was cancelled due to the pandemic, but in June, I was able to sit for it at home, and thank God I passed.
Congrats.
That's the journey so far before I got called to bar.
That's a long one, and I think obviously a lot of different challenges involved there in managing a newborn, and really there's a lot of people, some of my friends even I know, who use that maternity time to just do nothing and love it. But it sounds like you really saw that as an advantageous break, because now all of a sudden you've got this time and you're not quite happy in the job that you're in, and you saw, let's say, a better future, one where you had more control, less of a drone in a warehouse, more autonomy and control over your career, and to help your family. So, I mean, talk about using that time wisely. You did an amazing job, and completing the barrister and solicitor exams in one try. Let me tell you, even for Canadian domestically trained students, is no easy feat. I mean, in 2017, I know the NCA published a report that indicated 47% of NCA candidates fail the bar exam on the first try. And so you completing that with everything else going on is a test, with 30-minute study breaks at work, is a testament to just how much you really wanted it. And I think it's sort of a good, I guess, I don't want to say lesson, but I'll use the word lesson for other people to learn is, although it could seem daunting and challenging, I mean, first and foremost, immigrating to a new country, I can imagine, would be in itself a challenge. And then looking at your career and thinking, okay, how can I get this off the ground too, is another challenge. Then both of them together could be, I can only imagine. And so to come out the other side successfully, obviously, I can see why you would want to be a mentor for others, because you know that it's a challenge, and you know that people can come to Canada with I mean, you know, sometimes Google is a girl's best friend, but other times Google can lie a little bit, and people can say, oh, come to Canada, it's easy. Come take our courses and you'll become a lawyer, it's easy. But really, you know, it's good to have somebody who's been there, done that, who can say, look, this is what you need to watch out for. This is how much time you need to put towards things. So I think that's amazing. Really, really deserves a congratulations and a round of applause. Yeah, absolutely. So you're going to be called to the bar. You've passed. Have you begun articling? Have you thought about articling?
So what I thought about was that I was going to article, because from the group that I joined, a lot of people talked about how it was difficult for internationally trained lawyers to get articling position because it's very competitive. And I thought to myself, even though I had a little bit of practice from back home, I've never practiced here. I've never worked in a law firm, because some people are lucky they come in and they're able to work as a legal assistant and they could see how it goes and all of that. So I thought, you know what, I'm not going to get an exemption. I'm just going to take that opportunity to do the articling and get the necessary experience, so it will be easy for me to get a job or probably get retained where I work. But then it was difficult as well to find a place that would pay. And I couldn't afford not to get paid because I have kids, I have rent, I have bills. So that wasn't an option for me. The same thing with the, I think LPP or LLP.
LPP, yeah, and Ryerson, yeah.
Because a lot of people, international trained lawyers, would prefer to go for that, which was like 4 months of lectures and 4 months of co-op. And that was 8 months of my life as well. I couldn't afford, I don't have savings that much that would take me for 8 months. So I kept pondering about it. Should I do it? Should I not do it? But what made me, what allowed me to make my decision was when we started, when the pandemic started, I finished my bar exams, my solicitor exam, but then everything went on lockdown. No law firm was open. So I was like, I don't know how long this is going to take. We don't know if they're going to open this year or next year. And then when they open, then it's going to take me another 10 months from then to get my articling done. Like, that's not in the goal, because I set a goal, I set a timeline, and that timeline wasn't being met. So I said, you know what, that's it. I'm just going to take advantage of right now and get the articling exemption. So I contacted the Law Society to find out what I need to do if I wanted an exemption. And they had told me I need to get a certificate of good standing from my country. I have to get a reference letter from my employer, and I have to fill application form and also a letter. So I did all that, contacted my parents back home to be able to help me. And I contacted a friend as well that had a friend in Nigeria that was able to help me get my certificate of good standing. So I got all of that in, and within a week I got the exemption. So I was happy. Like, so now all I have to focus on is call to bar. Wow. And so it was easier for me to just get the exemption because I couldn't wait anymore.
I think that's actually something that, I mean, I've done more than a few episodes now, but we have never really touched on articling exemptions. So that's really useful for people to listen to and to learn from, is that it is possible to do it. And you just briefly walked through essentially what you need to do is provide a letter. You need to fill an application form, certificate of good standing, and then a letter from your past employer. And it's something that people, again, you know, you Google, and there are different provinces with different requirements for articling abridgment. So it's something worthwhile learning from. That's great. So, I mean, now that you're looking forward to the bar, and I mean, it's such a long journey, and I guess it's gonna, unfortunately with COVID, you can't properly celebrate. But if you could, I'm sure you would rent a hall and you would party.
I know.
But failing that, I guess the biggest celebration for you will be to really start your career in a direction that you want once and for all, right? All the education and the challenges and the journey that you've faced. Now getting called to the bar in Ontario, in Canada, what would be your aspirations? What are you looking to accomplish with your law degree? Just maybe shed a little bit of light on what you'd like to do now moving forward.
So I've never seen myself as a lawyer that is really into litigation. As I said before, my passion was in human rights and inclusion and diversity matters. So I'd always thought I would work with an international organization like the UN and things like that. That was always my dream growing up. Like, so I can help in third world countries and, you know, help to grow the human rights. And because there's so many, you'll be surprised how many countries are not into human rights. But the thing is, for example, take my country for instance, there's so many human rights violations going on there. And I know that some other West African countries or Asian countries, the same thing, they have a lot of violations and they don't allow other countries to interfere. So I thought if I'm working with an international organization, I could use my expertise, I could use my experience like to get those countries better with their human rights. But well, that didn't happen. So I thought coming here as well, I could work with like right now I have a channel called That Proud Black Woman, and I talk about anti-racism and I talk about institutional bias and the inclusion and diversity matters. And since I got called to buy, I thought, you know, maybe those are also human rights, right? So maybe I could look for organizations, not necessarily a law firm, that has department for diversity and inclusion or anti-racism or things like that, and they need lawyers or they need somebody with an LLB background. So I could apply in those places and use my experience in those places. So that's what I'm looking to do right now. And also I'm also promoting that on my platform.
Yeah, I think obviously, and I guess, I mean, obviously, unfortunately, with the current social unrest that's taking place in the United States, and you know, this I suppose it's also in Canada as well. Obviously, there are companies and there are organizations waking up to the fact that there is a need for more people to represent and to oversee diversity and inclusion matters within organizations. So, I mean, given your expertise and your experience, I think you'd make a great candidate for something like that. I mean, that would be amazing. And I mean, I think it's important to continue that work, you know, like you say. I mean, I think growing up, we have a vision of helping third world countries through organizations like the UN, but really it's also just as valuable, I think, in getting involved in organizations and helping in a grassroots level wherever you are, really. I mean, you could start small and spread a word, spread a message that's really valuable to local communities as well, and to grow that message and to continue the good work. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think the future is bright for you, Fikemi. Your journey is one that, I mean, it's been really interesting to learn from, because it's one that did have its challenges, right? Like there were legitimate opportunities for you to look at everything and say, you know what? Health and safety is fine for me. I'll just stay here and earn, you know, like you say, you have rent, you know, you can buy your food, but you really pushed forward. And I think that should be inspiring, especially to, you know, let's say future lawyers and future potential immigrants in Canada from Nigeria or from that area of the world, to learn from your journey. So definitely, if you could let people know how to get in touch with you and let people know what you're doing now, and so that they can follow along and so that they can learn from you and you know, have you as a mentor.
Yeah, so as I said before, you could reach me at my email, which is at thatproudblackwoman on Instagram, or in my Gmail, which is thatproudblackwoman @gmail.com, or you could also be on my Twitter at thatproudblack2, like 2. Mm-hmm. So everything That Proud Black Woman, I think it's me.
That's the brand.
Right on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and even the email address on Google. It's all me. So you could get across to me that way. Right now, as I said, I'm in EHS at my work, but I'm also the education lead for the Inclusion and Diversity Committee that just got constituted earlier this year. And I've been doing a lot of good work with my team, and we've been bringing speakers to talk about anti-racism and how to address racism and how to be more inclusive at your workplace and diversity and things like that. So I do that at work, but then on my channel, where I'm free to say whatever I like without fear of favor, I also talk about inclusion and diversity, but at the same time, I also celebrate cultural diversity. I have like sometimes just fun videos talking about accents and accent challenges and broken English challenges from different countries and things like that, just trying to celebrate those differences that we have to make people more comfortable. Because when I first came to this country, I found it difficult, especially with my accent. I found it difficult to like talk to people because they'll be like, pardon, they can't hear me. And because of that, I don't want to talk so much. But now I really don't care. I'm like, if I'm coming from a country where they don't speak, like the first language is not English, and I could learn English, then I feel like I'm good. I'm really good, because a lot of people that are born in this country, they only speak English or they only speak French or something, but I'm kind of bilingual, because so I feel like I should be proud of what I have and not be ashamed of it. And so I think I've been through the NCA process, I've got to find out a lot of things about myself that I didn't know, that I could persevere, that I'm stronger than I think, that I could push, I could thrive under pressure. Like a lot of things that I learned, and I was like, wow, I didn't even know that person existed. So all of those experiences I'm taking to make me a better person. I'm putting it on my resume to make me marketable, to see that this person has all of these skills and all of these qualities, and I can use it to advance the cause of your company. So that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm really feeling happy, because especially with the inclusion and diversity that I just started earlier in the year, it's kind of towards my goal of actually helping in human rights matters. So I'm happier than where I used to be. Would I change anything? Maybe I'll tweak it a little bit, but I felt like all those experiences were not lost. It made me the woman I am today, and it's gonna make me even a better person tomorrow. So
yeah, I mean, amazing. I think, and you stole my last question, which is what I usually spring on guests. It's becoming less of a secret now, the more podcasts that I publish. But yeah, usually I say, given all of that, would you do it again? And your answer is a great one, and it's one that's really shared by a lot. I mean, there are little things along the journey that you look at and you say, I would have done that again. If I could do it again, I would do it a bit differently. But ultimately, where you are now, you know, you're so satisfied with how you've come out of it, and where you're headed in the future, that no matter what you could have changed in the past, maybe just leave it the way it is, because you're happy with who you are and where you are right now. So that's great. Yeah, and to touch on the fun little things in terms of accents, I went to the UK for law, and I was pretty shy in public to reveal my Canadian accent, because, you know, everybody would look at me and say, where are you from, America? And so, but then eventually I got more confident with that, and I just started yelling in my Canadian accent all the same. Fikemi, I really appreciate the time that you've lent to us. I know it's not challenging with young children, and, you know, with daycares and schools starting. So I really appreciate your time. And like I said, when I publish the podcast, and I'm sure when you share materials from the podcast, we'll remind people how to get in touch with you. I think your story is an inspirational one. And I think if we can reach people with a similar trajectory to yours, I think that would be amazing. So thanks again for all of your time.
Thank you so much, Anton. I hope I'm pronouncing it well.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, everybody. I hope you had fun watching the interview that I just had with Anton. I'm going to leave the link on how to contact him. I'm going to leave it in the description box, and I could also leave it on the screen. I'll determine later. But it was really a good chat, and I was happy I was able to communicate. We'll still be keeping in touch and see if we could work together even more in the future. So thank you so much for watching. Before you click off, remember to subscribe, like, share, and make sure that you comment. You know, what do you want to see on this channel? Do you want me to interview people? Do you want me to talk about specific topics? What do you want to know? about me? Do you have Q&A that you want me to answer? Contact me on my social media, or you can email me at thatproudblackwoman@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram at thatproudblackwoman or on Facebook at thatproudblackwoman. Also, all of those links are there on this on the screen right now. So please contact me. Thank you so much, and I love you all. Be good to yourself, be good to others, and make sure that you have fun. Life is too short not to have fun. Be happy and make others around you happy. Love you all, guys. Mwah.